For the better part of a decade, building a breakout consumer startup, it felt impossible, like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The old playbook was useless, the big distribution channels were all slammed shut, and honestly, all the real momentum, all the smart money had shifted over to B2B. But now, a brand new piece has just been dropped onto the board, and that piece is AI. And it's not just changing the game, it's creating a whole new one. It's unlocking ideas that, frankly, we all thought were dead and buried. So let's really get into this. The big question is, what happened, right? Why did we end up in this consumer winter where building anything for regular people just felt so unbelievably hard? And maybe more importantly, how exactly is AI the thing that's finally breaking the ice? To really get a handle on the future, we first got to take a hard look at why the recent past was such a struggle. All right, so let's talk about the consumer winter. For about 10 years, B2B, that's business-to-business software, it just ate everything. I mean, founders, investors, top talent. Everyone flocked to building for companies because, well, that's where the path to success was. It was clear. Consumer startups, they became famously, notoriously difficult. So let's break down the one key thing that really caused this deep freeze. This right here, this is the whole story in one timeline. Think back to, say, 2008 to 2012. That was the golden age. All the big social platforms were opening up their APIs, which basically created this amazing, fertile ground for new consumer apps to just sprout up and grow. But then, starting around 2014, bam, those gates just slammed shut. The platforms consolidated their power, and they cut off that fire hose of free distribution that had fueled a whole generation of startups. And this quote from Mike McNaughton, the founder of Anchor, just nails it. Distribution closed down, which then spurred this move over to B2B. He's not just saying these things happen around the same time. He's saying one caused the other. It's direct causation. Once that free-flowing river of distribution just dried up, founders had no choice. They had to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else was B2B, where you could actually build your own distribution with a sales team. It was a much more straightforward path, even if it was still really hard. Okay, so let's look at a perfect case study of a company that lived through this whole shift firsthand. Anchor. Now, today, we all know Anchor as this podcasting infrastructure giant, right? But it started with a very different, very 2014-style dream to be a fun consumer social audio app. Its journey from that pure consumer idea to becoming this powerful tool for prosumers, those passionate creators, it's basically the entire story of this market shift in a nutshell. So how in the world did Anchor survive when their first big idea, the consumer social thing, just wasn't panning out? Simple. They actually listened to their users. And their users were saying, hey, we love your creation tools, but we need our podcasts on the big platforms like Spotify and Apple. The huge problem, though, there were no APIs to do this automatically. So they did something completely insane, something that would make any VC cringe. They did something that just doesn't scale. A user would tap a button in the app, and then a real person, an actual human being on the Anchor team, would manually create an RSS feed and then go and submit it for them by hand. And what would drive them to do something so manual, so labor-intensive? This number right here, 15%. They were inspired by that classic Paul Graham essay, Startups Equals Growth. And the team made this absolutely brutal rule for themselves. Hit 15% week-over-week growth every single week, or the company dies. That's it. This relentless pressure forced them to throw out their own grand vision and just build the one thing users were literally begging them for. And you know what? It saved the company. Okay, so that was the old world, a world of fighting for scraps, relying on these brutal, unscalable hacks just to stay alive. What Anchor did, that whole manual process, it was a solution to a problem that technology simply couldn't solve at the time. But now that technology has arrived. So let's talk about how AI is completely changing the game, starting with the most fundamental thing, the act of creation itself. And honestly, there is no better example of this than the AI music company Suno. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's staggering. Before AI, making music, that was for professionals, for experts who had to put in years and years of practice. With Suno, literally anyone with an idea can type in a single text prompt and get back a full song. The goal itself has totally flipped. It's not about performing for other people anymore. It's about the pure personal joy of just creating something. And this right here is the core insight. Think about it. We've had technologies that democratized other things, right? The camera phone made everyone a photographer. Simple microphones made anyone a podcaster. But music was always different. It stayed behind this big wall, just too complex for technology to really simplify. AI is the first thing in history to come along with a sledgehammer and just completely smash down that wall. But what's really fascinating is seeing how people are actually using this new power. It's not just some fun little toy they play with once. No, people are creating music for themselves. Their primary audience is them. They're moving super quickly from just messing around to creating really meaningful, serious stuff. And for a lot of these people, this is the very first time in their entire lives they've ever even thought of themselves as a creator. All right, so let's talk about the new distribution playbook. AI is solving the creation problem, right? It's making it easier than ever before to build incredible things. But that's only half the battle. You still have to solve the distribution problem. The old channels are gone, so founders today need a completely new playbook to get their stuff in front of people. So let's frame this with a really practical question. Imagine you're building a new consumer startup in the US or Western Europe, and you need to hire a head of growth, someone who really knows their stuff. Where do you even look? Because during that whole consumer winter, this skill became a kind of lost art. The talent pool just, poof, it seemed to vanish. Well, here's a pretty wild answer from Eugenia Quita, the founder of Replica. She says you can't hire them in the United States anymore. They're all in Eastern Europe. The expertise didn't just disappear, it moved. The people, the founders, and growth hackers who really perfected modern algorithm-driven growth, they're mostly in Eastern Europe now. The whole knowledge base literally shifted across the globe. So what is this new kind of growth that they mastered? We need to understand the difference. The old organic growth was all about word of mouth. Slow, trust-based, your friend tells you about something. The new playbook is what we call non-paid growth. And this is all about strategically using creators to tap into the super powerful recommendation algorithms on platforms like TikTok or X. The goal isn't slow diffusion, it's rapid, massive scale. So, how does this actually work? What do? The whole tactic is about finding mispriced assets in the creator economy. Now, look, someone like Mr. Beast, he's not mispriced. He knows his value, and he commands it. The real opportunity, the sweet spot, is in the long tail. We're talking about creators with maybe 1,000 to 10,000 followers. The goal is to aggregate enough of these smaller but often super engaged communities to achieve massive scale. All right, the AI-generated future. We've seen how AI is changing creation and how it's changing distribution. Now let's look at the final frontier, because we're moving past just using AI as a tool to create media, and we're entering a world where AI is the media. And trust me, this is where things start to get really wild. To really get this shift, you have to understand the 3 phases of social media. So phase 1, that was the social graph, right? Facebook, early Twitter. You followed your friends, you saw their stuff, simple. Phase 2, which was really defined by TikTok, is recommendation media. An algorithm figures out what you like and just serves you an endless feed of content from anyone, anywhere. But now, with tools like Sora, we're entering phase 3, generated media. Here, the AI doesn't just find content for you, it creates it, personalized just for you in real time. So what's possible now? What does this all mean if you're a founder today? It means it's time to get really creative. You can start re-examining entire categories that we all thought were dead and solved, things like mail apps. But the biggest opportunity, it's probably in building brand new experiences on top of all the personal data we've been collecting for years, but not really using. Think about all the information just sitting there, untouched, in your Apple Health records, your phone's camera roll, your geolocation history. AI can finally make sense of all that and unlock its true value. And that brings us to one final, pretty provocative thought to leave you with. Right now, AI is still just a tool. It needs a human, it needs our taste, our prompts to create anything worthwhile. But the models are getting better, fast. They're starting to develop what feels like their own taste, their own energy. So we have to ask the big question. As AI develops its own aesthetic, its own sense of what's good, what's the role for human creation? In a world of infinite, perfectly personalized, automated content, where do we fit in?